Hey FFR listeners, this is the producer Rob speaking. It's that time of year when everyone starts to think about the important things in life, like our taxes. Did you know that a donation to Feminist Frequency is actually tax deductible? If you have a few bucks a month to spare, head on over to patreon.com/femfreak, FEMFREQ. Help us out, but also help yourself to all the great exclusive content that's available only to people who are signed up on our Patreon.
It becomes a little too real in ways that I'm like, I gotta deal with this shit every fucking day.
Yeah.
And it's not just like I have to deal with racism and sexism and shit every day. It's like the specifics of like Twitter, internet culture.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Feminist Frequency Radio. This is the show that asks you to be critical of the media you love. I'm Anita Sarkeesian.
And I'm Kat Spada. And on this mini season of the podcast, we're eating the rich. What better place to do that than at a billionaire's private island with his big, dumb glass onion?
Rian Johnson's latest film reintroduces Daniel Craig as the stylish detective Benoit Blanc, or Benoit, if you want to be goofy about it, complacent with cabin fever at the beginning of the pandemic. Along with Blanc, a group of wealthy eccentrics played by Dave Bautista, Catherine Hahn, Kate Hudson, Leslie Odom Jr., and Janelle Monáe are sent invitations in the form of intricate puzzle boxes. Beckoned by tech billionaire Miles Braun, played by Edward Norton, they arrive for a murder mystery adventure that turns into a quest to solve the mystery of what happened in the past that connected all these rich weirdos and what secrets they share. Oh my God, I'm so tired of even reading the description again.
It's a lot.
And that's only the half of it. But joining us to discuss Glass Onion is the senior editor at Engadget, writing and podcasting about technology news and games. He also co-hosts the long-running film, TV, and entertainment podcast for Slash Film, the Slash Filmcast. Welcome to the podcast, Devindra Hardawar.
Hello, folks. Happy to be here. Long-time listener. So it's great. It's always great to chat with the voices in your head, you know?
Absolutely. I am so stoked for you to come on. You've been on my list of a potential guest. I apologize that it's this episode, though. And the reason why I apologize is because not only do I fucking hate this movie with a raging passion, I hate it more every day that goes on.
Oh, wow. Well, I did hear your Tar review, so I kind of have a sense of where our tastes may misalign right now. Yeah.
But I also watched it not knowing we were going to record a podcast for it. So, I didn't take any notes. I have a terrible memory, whatever. And I was like, I hated this movie so much that I can't even go back and rewatch it. So this is extra, just
okay.
I'm just going to offer a lot of ragey anger that has no backing whatsoever. It's going to be great.
It is funny. I feel like, I don't know what it is about Rian Johnson, but something about his stuff sometimes triggers this in a lot of folks too. I don't think all the Last Jedi haters are crazy misogynists about specifically what, but his sense of humor is something, is a wavelength that I'm not sure is easy to get on sometimes, but I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Rian Johnson was on our side during Gamergate, I have affection for that,
There's a broader feminist point in this movie too that I could relate to the first Knives Out, and honestly, every single thing he's done too. He is good. He's a good dude. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really like movies that much.
This is a very conflicted feminist, white noise. I had this upsetting thought that I like Noah Baumbach more because of Greta Gerwig, and I kind of feel that way too about Karina Longworth, where I'm hell yeah, love her. Rian Johnson,
she's great.
You got to be doing something right.
What a power couple.
What a power couple. And I vaguely worked on Looper for 5 minutes, so I have a little.
Really? Wow.
I'm so sorry.
We kind of.
Is this another one? What, hatred?
That movie's so bad.
Much fun. Oh my God. Okay. Okay.
Bad.
I know. I'm gonna need to strap in over here.
It's so interesting because I feel okay, I'm going to take a weird digression here, but I just rewatched a couple of M. Night Shyamalan movies.
Love him so much.
I feel he has grown on me. Especially on rewatches, where the first time I went to go see Old in theaters because I was like, I love to live a meme in real life. I want to go see this.
Sure.
There's something wrong with that
Also, beautiful
beach.
movie to see in theaters. Like that was worth it.
Yeah, why did I see it in like the Dolby Theater or whatever? And then I rewatched it the other night and I was like, this movie is kind of poetic and beautiful.
This movie rules. It rules, yes.
And
yes. It may be dumb at the end, but it has stuff.
I remember seeing the trailer for it and being like, this looks really interesting. And then then the title comes on, like directed by blah, blah, and me and my friend were like, oh no, we can't watch that now.
I mean,
I feel like Rian Johnson is kind of in the same boat for me where like his movies are both stupider and less stupid than I'm expecting them to be. And I like that. Like I feel like I go into this movie thinking it's going to be like a higher intellectual piece of art than it is. And then it's like, I enjoy the fact that it's actually not that.
Well, so here's the thing is I enjoyed Knives Out. And then I rewatched it and I did not enjoy it and was like, maybe this movie wasn't as good as I thought it was. So I wasn't on I don't really like Rian Johnson kick. Like Star Wars, whatever. I have big feelings about Star Wars, but like Rian Johnson is like coming out on top in the Star Wars kind of bullshit world in comparison, right? Like 100%. But like Looper was trash. This movie's trash.
Wow.
I don't know. I didn't even ask you what you thought of this movie before I invited you because I was really hoping that you liked it because it's so much more interesting to
I don't really like this movie. I love this movie. It was in my top 10 this year. It's like in my top 5 actually. I think I can see part of it too. Like, so I've also heard another podcast, like somebody else say this movie's just dumb, dumb. And I'm like, did we see the same movie? Because I think what Rian Johnson likes to do, and he tends to do, is he deconstructs a familiar genre and kind of like repackages it in a way that makes it feel fresh and new. I've also seen all of Peacock, the show Poker Face on Peacock. I've seen all the episodes of that. Also his new TV show that he did the first 2 episodes, helped co-write and like showrun. He has a great sensibility of like bringing something that we're used to and just like spinning it a little so that it's different. So it's not just a reboot. It is refreshing at the same time as being kind of reminiscent. Yeah.
And this is where we're butting heads is I don't think this is refreshing or interesting. I think this is old and tired. I think that Glass Onion is basically like liberal Twitter. And it's just as sophisticated as that, right? Like it's like 240 character, a little joke here and there, like making fun of archetypes in some ways. And it's nothing more than that. So to me, I was like just rolling my eyes the whole time being like, one, this movie is not going to age well. This is a movie of the moment. And it almost feels late for me in a lot of ways. So I became more angry about this movie as time has passed. And the more people who liked it, the angrier I got too, right?
It's the children who are wrong.
Yeah. I went on this trip for New Year's and it came up that like, people were talking about this movie and I was like, yeah, fuck that movie or whatever. And then like some other movie came up and I was like, yeah, fuck that movie too. And so these are people that don't really know me or like know anything about me. And they're like, do you just hate everything?
You just hate all the good stuff. Tar also in my top 5 this year or last year. So,
whatever. You just have bad taste in movies. It's fine.
I just feel like I'm always the Goldilocks in these conversations where I'm like, yeah, there are parts of it where I'm like 1000% Anita, like this is going to age like milk. And then I also am like, I can explain why I don't necessarily have a problem with that.
Yeah. I think you guys have a good balance of guests, by the way. So like, totally, you're getting all the viewpoints in. It's great.
Yeah. Okay, I keep saying this. I hate it more later. As I was watching it, it was just kind of boring to me. Right? Like I was like, okay, like I was giving him the benefit of the doubt. I was like, okay, where are we going? Blah, 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 whatever. And like, I think I paused the movie about an hour in being like, oh my God, we're an hour in and it's still set up. Like it dragged and it just never like went anywhere to me. So part of it was the actual like pacing of the film.
Because it's 2 halves of a movie. It is like what they describe, So yeah. It's unusual, right? No, what movie does that? What movie gives you the full setup, yada, yada, yada. You solve the mystery, the like what you think is the core mystery within like 30 minutes, like kind of towards the end. And then it flips on you and you're like, whoa, We're like, wait a minute.
But I guess I can see that, but I think I was so fucking bored at that point that I was like, this is not an interesting, like, to me, I was like at that point, there was nothing that could be done that was going to pull me out of my like doldrum of watching this fucking movie, right? So the twist didn't feel like a twist. Yeah,
he takes a risk of like losing you in the early half too. And we had Rian Johnson on the Filmcast recently to talk about like to dive into this movie, and I even brought it up like I think Benoit Blanc is being kind of dumb at the beginning. Like, what's up with that? And then eventually it's revealed like, oh, he is putting on an act to kind of like blow smoke up this billionaire's ass to be like, oh, whoa, look at this. That's your car. Look at this glass onion. It is all kind of an act to kind of like ingratiate himself and kind of figure out what's going on here. But it is a risk to kind of put that up there. I don't know. I just found that really fun. So here's the difference too. Like I saw this movie for the first time in the theater with a pretty packed like Friday night crowd. And oh my God, like this is a general audience. It's not like a press audience or something. And people were just like on board. Like every like moment, every laugh, every like twist of this movie. I don't know if do you guys typically do like a separate spoiler section? Or
no,
is it
we
kind
can
of all
spoil
up there.
Yeah. Hey, if you're listening and you care about Glass Onion and you haven't watched Glass Onion, I don't know what to tell you.
Stop listening, but also come back because I think this will be a good discussion. But like the twists and turns of this movie and where it goes, I think it's genuinely very smart. And one of the more dismissive takes I saw about this movie early on was like, oh man, this is just an Adam McKay movie, right? This is the first half of an Adam McKay movie. I'm like, how
I am offended on Adam McKay's behalf.
No, because Adam McKay is the one out there making the like, kind of low rent back patty stuff for liberals. Where it's like, you feel this way. You feel so good about feeling this way. Whereas I think this movie is actively making fun of a lot of that. Like even just the sense of like all the celebrity cameos, the sort of like archetypes they're setting up here. It is poking fun at itself. And in that way, also poking fun at the audience too. And I think Rian Johnson likes to juggle a lot of plates. Like I've never seen a simple movie from this guy. His first movie that I saw was Brick. His like wonderful like high school noir thing. I saw that thing in like a tiny theater in Hartford, Connecticut. Nobody knew who he was. It was such a low budget thing. And that movie blew me away because it was so unique and so unusual. And the language and the writing was so sharp. And to think man, he wanted to do a Star Wars and now he's doing this like crazy Netflix thing. First of all, I just like to take a step back and admire that. But I think this movie is playing with the genre. It is doing a lot. The one word I would not say about it is that it's dumb. Because I've seen many dumb movies. I've seen all the Netflix like original movies. Like was it the one with The Rock and Ryan Reynolds where it's just like
Dawn or something?
Red Notice, where it's just like, oh, you just want these guys to sit here and take like video them as they do B-roll and blow up cars. That's all you want to do. That's dumb to me. Not good writing.
I was just talking to my friend that I watched this with, being like, I don't fucking remember this movie. Tell me what to say on my podcast. I have nothing to say, right?
Cyrano de Bergerac.
And he was not helpful, so for what it's worth. So this is all me. So I've been watching Vikings Valhalla, which is a terrible show. Like, it's just really, truly bad, right? Because I watch bad television.
Like B TV entertainment, you know?
Sure. Yeah. You know, it's whatever. And so we were talking about, like, bad media. And I was like, the difference for me, if I'm like, this movie is bad and this TV show is bad, is that this TV show knows it's bad, right? It knows that it's a fucking mid-tier, mediocre, whatever. Where Glass Onion, to me, like, thinks that it's really smart and thinks that it's really, like, progressive and making all these commentaries and really, like, understanding the world and, like, bringing you along in this understanding. And to me, I'm just like,
I don't think it does. I don't think it thinks it's that. And...
The only reason I would agree with you, even though I just said that, is because of the history of the word glass onion, which I also pisses me off and makes me hate it even more, right? Because if you're like, I'm going to make this movie that's going to make you think that I think that I'm so fucking smart, but really it's all a facade to like, because the term glass onion it comes from the Beatles song about how they were like annoyed that people were reading so much into their lyrics and like, So that like makes me even more angry of like, what are you doing?
So here's the read on it. And it's like, I should not be like holistically looking at this. I should just be analyzing the movie, but I'm so excited for Poker Face. The first episode just premiered and I haven't watched it yet.
So good.
I love the notion of Columbo ran for 20 years, and Natasha, well, you know, a bunch of movies and then 10 seasons or whatever. Natasha Lyonne wants to be that kind of guy. She wants to be that kind of guy in a thing. And let's just make that kind of a guy in a thing show. Like, I'm into that.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't have to be like, but what if it was also about a dark night of the soul? It's like, no, like, I think he's just like, let's do a, you know, murder of the week or whatever. So this movie, like, watching it, when I kind of realized, like, a lot of it is dumb, a lot of it is dated, and RIP to every filmmaker who tried to, like, comment on the pandemic in 2020 when they were writing a script, and then the movie comes out 2 years later when it is different and weird, and, like, the whole, I think, like, seeing what kinds of masks these characters would have worn, like, would have really packed a punch 18 months prior, but I was thinking about, like, every other one of these movies in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And I think they are all that. They're all kind of the time. They all are fairly simple in, like, their archetypes and caricatures of who the players are. And so, like, watching it, I think, yeah, I have this expectation that, oh, Knives Out is going to feel like some kind of redefinition of genre. And I haven't rewatched it, but now thinking on it, I'm like, is it? It's going to feel like a very 2018 or whatever movie. And this feels like if you weren't on Twitter in 2022, this movie isn't for you. And so if, you know, somebody 10 years from now who is like a teenager now, this movie isn't going to do anything for them. In the same way that, like, if I watch a James Bond movie, like, it really doesn't do a hell of a lot for me, because I'm just like, oh yeah, this was probably great in, like, 1962 or whatever. And I say that with, like, hopefully listeners know that I have a deep appreciation for older films. It's not like something where I just can't tune into it.
The Bond films are particularly, like, hard to go back to sometimes, where it's like it opens with him just slapping women for no reason. For fun, just for fun.
Right. And I kind of felt that way about, like, you know, Kate Hudson's character in this, where I was like, she is so of this moment, like this influencer, fashion, like celeb character. That type of person has existed for decades, but, like, she's particularly 2022. And so I enjoyed it, but I also feel like it's okay if it has, like, diminishing value for me. I'm not...
For sure.
Yeah. And I think this is interesting. Like, a friend was talking about how, like, they would prefer a film to use metaphor in a different time, like, not of the moment, right? Like, use a different time period, go out into space, go into the past to, like, talk about, like, contemporary issues. And I was like, I don't, like, to me, I'm like, I don't want to limit the way that we think about storytelling to that. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, you can't do a movie that is of the moment, right? I watched Party Girl a few nights ago, and you're watching that and you're like, oh my God, this is of this moment. Like, supremely racist, but also just the sensibilities and the style and whatever. Like, it doesn't age well, you know, like, it is of this moment. So I think that there is, you know, I'm making an argument that nobody else is making here, but I think that, like, I don't want to discount the, hey, I'm going to comment on this thing that's happening right now, and it exists right now for these people in this moment.
And this movie was written, like, late 2020, I believe. So he was working on, like, while they were in lockdown. So it's like, I wouldn't even say it's very 2022 because things have changed a bit since then. But you know what? You know what happened? A freaking idiot billionaire took over Twitter. Is now, like, almost single-handedly responsible for, like, one of the largest, like, communications platforms known to man. One thing I definitely like wanted to ask Rian Johnson was, like, is it funny that the real world is dumber than, like, the billionaires you posited in your movie? And, like, it kind of feels that way. I feel like he called a lot of stuff here. Like, this movie was written before Musk became, I mean, he was still, like, a big deal, and he still had his fanboys, but now he has, like, a level of influence that is disturbing to me, and he is, like, out there, like, you know, destroying a major communications platform for a lot of marginalized groups. Like, that stuff is disturbing to me. I don't see that too far removed from the, like, dumb ideas going on here from Miles Braun. And I don't know, like, I don't feel like it's too dated. If anything, he's using archetypes that, existed at the time, but I think is doing interesting work commenting on them. Like that Kate Hudson role, first of all, she is hilarious. She's just funny. I feel like movies all of a sudden forgot that she could be this thing where she was in a lot of crappy rom-coms for a while. I think it uses her well. I think it uses the entire cast well. The Batista thing is hilarious to me because you see he's a streamer. He's a streamer. I like his sort of like, there's like an offhand thing when he's shooting his video to his fans, and he's like, "Take that, feminist." Yeah. It's just like a beat, like, "Yeah, feminist, take that." And then you see that he's a mama's boy, living his mom. His mom can slap him down. Like it's those sorts of dynamics. It's not exactly fresh, it's definitely on the nose. But I found it really entertaining and really fun, and certainly with a crowd. And then I saw it back at home with my wife, who is also a fan of all these Rian Johnson things, and she really enjoyed it as well. I have to say, like, Janelle Monáe doing double duty in this movie as like we see her in two different ways. I think she's really interesting here. I almost worried, like, oh my God, did you kill Janelle Monáe twice in your movie, Rian Johnson? How God damn you? And then the movie got me by the reveal of how she survived and everything. So it's like, I had a lot of fun with it. I think sometimes, and there's certainly for movies like this, you kind of have to let go. You kind of have to like go for the ride and not try to outsmart the movie and not try to like bring in intentions into here where we don't know the full story yet, right? So there's a lot I could read into movies, and I'm certainly angry at a lot of movies about this too. Like I think Adam McKay's stuff. Are you defending some Adam McKay movies?
I am. Yes.
Which ones? Like I liked him earlier, like in the Will Ferrell era.
I love Don't Look Up. I think that is a better version of like kind of a comment, like an immediate commentary. I really liked Winning Time, the Lakers show on HBO.
Oh,
and
like, I didn't check that out. Don't Look Up. I think the ending of Don't Look Up is probably the bravest thing Adam McKay has done in a decade, right? Like, I think a lot of his stuff felt like, what happened here? The story of a Cheney, like all these stories. It felt a lot of like, oh, you're angry about this too? So am I. I'm going to make you feel good about being angry about it. I'm like, to me, that is the liberal sort of like back patting that is annoying to me because it's not telling us anything new or doing anything interesting. Yeah.
I think that's interesting. Part of what pulls me in is I really like his filmmaking style. I think that the way that he is the abruptness, the use of color, the use of mixed media, like the actual filmmaking of it really pulls me in and gives me more openness to the narrative, I think, because I'm so drawn to it. But yeah, like, why do I think that Don't Look Up is a much better way of telling the story about like a global catastrophe than I think Glass Onion is, right? They are both sort of pandering to liberal ideals. I just think one is smarter. I think one is just done better than the other.
Like, and that's the thing. Like, I wanted Don't Look Up to be a really smart satire of everything, and it just kind of felt like, yes, I know everything is screwed up. I know the power structures are screwed up. I know the rich are trying to escape this planet. Like, there's been people talking about this. So like, yeah, it didn't tell me anything new.
And so here's the thing is every time I say something about Glass Onion, my brain immediately goes to, but I could say that about this other movie. Like, I was saying some shit about Glass Onion that I could also say about Triangle of Sadness, but I would never say that about Triangle of Sadness, right?
That it was
fun?
Like,
that it's not subtle. Triangle of Sadness isn't subtle, but I think it's better at doing
I think the demands for subtlety are overblown, right? Like, some things can be subtle. Poetry can be subtle, but sometimes a kick in the face or, kick in the pants is useful as an artistic statement.
I don't necessarily need subtle for everything by any means, or nuance even for everything. But I think that one of the things around Don't Look Up is completely fucking lost that thought.
It's okay. Yeah, one thing you were bringing up, though, is a movie that knows what it is. And I do think this movie knows what it is. I think in general, like, Rian Johnson has a really firm grasp as a writer and as a director and as an artist of storytelling. Like, you go back and hear him talk about like how he was building up The Last Jedi, which is, forget the fan like fights over it. Like, that is a remarkable narrative of what they did. Like, basically upending the hero template from Star Wars and trying to ask you to accept different things. Like, maybe not all the rebels are good guys. Maybe there is a cost to this. Maybe not, there shouldn't just be a legendary hero. Maybe everybody should have a bit of that heroism. I do feel like Rian Johnson always at least tried to do that. I think for this movie, I just really enjoyed the ride. I think like everybody had a lot of fun making this, and you can really tell, like, I never felt bored by it. Even in the first half where I was like, oh, this is weird. Benoit Blanc is acting like a bit of a fanboy right now, and I kind of even felt that. And to see that it was a put on was like, oh yes, of course. Like, yeah, you kind of outsmarted me there, movie. Like, I expected that too.
I think that there is value to preaching to the choir in some respects, depending on the goals of what you're trying to do. And there's value to the solidarity of being in relation with other people who are also outraged. It's why fucking church is what it is, right? Like, you come together in community with like-minded people. And so I do, like, with something like Don't Look Up, I think that there is value in, like, yeah, we all know the world is fucking ending, and we know that there are all these horrible people who are, like, making it worse. And like, I see you and you see me, and we're helpless together. It's why protests mean a lot to people. Not because it really does a lot, but it's because it brings people to feel connected to one another in moments of outrage or whatever. So I think that there is a little bit of that happening in in this whole series of movies that we're talking about, right? About like the idea of showing the utter horrifyingness of class inequality and inequity in general, and letting us like kind of laugh at it and letting us like connect with each other, being like, yeah, we do not live in a good world, and like we need a little bit of reprieve from it. So I think there's something around that has value in some of these films, despite my like kind of mediocre opinion about plenty of them.
Yeah, I think my thing about I don't want to just make this a Don't Look Up episode, because I feel like I'm done with that movie, but it was trying to be a satire, right? And like for me, the gold standard of like satire is Strangelove, you know, whereas that movie has aged so well, and like you go back to it's like, man, it's everything. That's everything right now of like how our societies run and how we're thinking and how the military-industrial complex works.
And talk about a movie with no subtlety.
No subtlety. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
The planes are fucking.
The planes, indeed. Like, yeah. And I think this movie kind of has, at least in terms of satire, has a little more bite to it than something like Don't Look Up, which just didn't really work for me until the end. But I do want to say, like, I appreciate like how Rian Johnson crafts these narratives. And in this movie and the first Knives Out, and honestly, even Last Jedi, I kind of have to be like, is he going to basically like highlight another like, you know, woman of color as like the actual protagonist of this movie? And he does it again here. He tried to do it in Last Jedi, and they kind of messed up with Rose afterwards. But I do appreciate him for that too. So it's like, it's all these things, the way he tells stories and who he's highlighting and who the stories are actually about, I think are really interesting. Because the second character Janelle Monáe plays is so sympathetic. Like, her sister died because these assholes, you know, lied about her in court, and this guy straight up murdered her. Okay. And this whole plan to do that.
But some questions. So I haven't seen Don't Look Up, but right, it's a comet that is climate change, right? That's that movie.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
This movie, I am a little lost at the MacGuffin of it. Is Janelle's Andy character, so like the actual Andy was a black woman who gathered together a group of people, and then they lied on her in court, and then she got dead. Like, is she a hero in this movie? Like, are we supposed to feel...
She was the one who was like, you cannot put hydrogen in people's homes, you idiot.
Right.
Like, that was her stand, to be like, you cannot use my company to do this. This is ridiculous and stupid. And that was kind of the reason she like tried to end their relationship, like with Miles Braun, and then the story is like he sort of pushed her out of the company.
Like, I don't want to villainize this character that we never actually meet, because I don't know enough about her, but I got the sense that like her sister really doesn't know what happened. Like, she read her journals or what have you, but like there could have been like, I'm not to defend Elon Musk, but there could have been like I'm trying to make a clean energy thing happen, even though the lithium batteries that we're going to need are also going to further destroy Central Africa. But like what she could very well have been like, no clean energy, like not that. I want to do this other thing.
Sure. Anything is possible. That's not in the text of the movie. Yeah. But
I have no idea.
The text of the movie is she was like, no to this idea. Flat no. And she was kicked out because of that. And all her friends turned on her because they suckle at this billionaire's teat, you know? And I found that really compelling. that revenge structure for the second half, at least.
I want to say, so you said the word storytelling a few times, and I think that I wanted to acknowledge Rian Johnson. The only Oscar nomination this movie got was for original screenplay. I think he is a wonderful writer. I do think this, I'd love to read the screenplay, actually, especially...
I think adapted screenplay, right? Like, sequels are immediately adapted, so yeah.
Right.
But I think it was one screenplay thing. Yeah, you're right.
And I think that he probably also is very involved in a lot of the other design elements of this, but costume and production design also, I think, did 80% of the storytelling for this movie. And there was so much that I did love. Like, I think I said this, Anita, you weren't on the episode, but when we did an episode about The Witch, and we were talking about, why can't I remember that filmmaker who just made The Northman?
Robert Eggers.
Where, I don't think he's particularly interested in what the story is that he's telling, but it's such a craft masterpiece that it's well,
he's a vibe dude.
Yeah,
he exists in the
and
vibes,
it's this is,
and he wants to present
this is beauty. This makes you feel a lot of feelings because of what you're just seeing, and not even necessary, and the sound design and everything, not even necessarily whatever the story is. This is a movie that I do think you can be pretty checked out of the story and still have a good time.
It is pretty complex. The twists and turns, if you blink out for a minute during a major twist, you're probably lost for a big chunk of the movie, right? Andy thought Andy was dead. What's going on?
I think I just was so not enthralled by the story that there were times where I was I'm not sure I really know what's happening. I might have missed it, but I guess I don't care. I don't...
It's a good vibe. It is a good vibe.
Yeah.
It's a hangout movie. You're hanging out with these characters, even though they're kind of shitbags. Some of them are kind of fun to be with. I like all these actors, and I see Janelle Monáe over there in the corner seething.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like that Simpsons episodes of, the one where it's that small guy is going to do something. And I want to see what he does. So I do kind of feel like that, but his visual storytelling too, he's a great writer, but I think all of his movies look interesting and have really interesting visual flourishes too. So definitely a director kind of is saying what things should look like, and he's relying on the expertise of set decorators and costume designers and everything. But I do feel like he had a hand in it.
Absolutely.
This stuff doesn't.
I mean, there's the reason I mentioned what the Don't Look Up kind of MacGuffin or whatever is, and then this movie is that, like you said, he sort of predicts, he couldn't have known what the Elon Musk Twitter of 2022 would have been in 2020 when he wrote the movie. And here you have a half dozen rich weirdos who all have some personal blackmail or whatever reason why they have to be devoted to Miles Braun. And in today's world, we have people without millions of dollars who also feel that they have to be devoted to this idol. But there is a moment that honestly, as a storytelling piece, is so perfect. And it is that Miles Braun is dressed like Tom Cruise's character from Magnolia in the flashbacks.
Yes. Getting the wrong lessons from that, I guess. Of course that idiot would do that.
Of course. I mean...
Of course, he's a role model.
I've been modeling myself after quiz kid Donnie Smith, unfortunately, ever since I saw Magnolia, which is also the wrong lesson to take from that movie. But there's just where I get the sense that automatically I'm great, I'm not going to listen to a word out of this guy's mouth because I know exactly who he idolizes.
You know who he is. You know who he is. There's that. It's all those little touches. There's the time cover of him holding up the napkin, right? And that is a direct copy of the Elizabeth Holmes holding up the Theranos thing. It's all those little touches, the
Rothko.
You do know what you're doing.
That's hanging upside down. There's also, here we are critical of the media that we love, right? But this, I think I feel weird that I'm soft pedaling this movie, but I think I maybe am the only one of us who made the mistake of seeing the movie See How They Run in theaters.
I've not seen that, but I've heard.
Yeah, it's Agatha Christie shows up. There's these Poirot movies that poor Kenneth Branagh keeps trying to make. And it's just like, I think that 5 years ago, I would have watched Glass Onion, or this is probably how I watched Knives Out, like really actively. I'm watching this with a desire to solve this story on my own. Like I've got to be half a step ahead of this movie. And I think by the time I got to Glass Onion, maybe, I don't know, maybe the pandemic wore me down. I was just like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm just going to watch,
we're all worn down.
wash over me. And I enjoyed so much of it aesthetically that like, though the storytelling didn't do a lot for me, I was like, that's not what this movie is trying to be.
So that's interesting because like when I watched Knives Out, you know, I wasn't particularly trying to solve them. I was watching it just like a wash over me. I'm just going to watch this thing. It's very aesthetic, great sweaters, you know, whatever. And I enjoyed the ride. I think part of the difference with this is that it becomes, and I don't feel this way overall about everything all the time, but it becomes a little too real in ways that I'm like, I got to deal with this shit every fucking day.
It's true.
You know,
true. Yeah.
like it's like I'm engaged, like, and it's not just like I have to deal with racism and sexism and shit every day. It's like the specifics of like Twitter, internet culture, and maybe for me specifically, I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Like I've done this enough.
Yeah.
I've been the target of this shit enough. I just like. It isn't something that I am just gonna like enjoy the ride of, and this might be related too because I was thinking when you were talking about Don't Look Up that I'm like I forget exactly what you said that triggered this thought, but I think it might be you know, we all approach film, and this is the beauty of it, is we approach films based on our moments in time that we are in and our histories and whatever, and so there are more points in to Don't Look Up for me than there are in Glass Onion. Like, for example, the female scientist being attacked by the internet in the most believable way that would ever happen. So here's a contradiction I just shared, right? Where one is like, in that case, I was like, yes, this is what would happen. And like, I'm so glad you're calling this out and identifying these like beats. Whereas in Glass Onion, I'm like, okay. You know, like, I'm tired. Like, I don't, yes, MRAs are pieces of shit. Why are we following you around? Like, these people are not good people. Why are you making me spend time with them?
But it's about the why of it. Like, the why of it is, I don't think it's a waste of time, right? Like, these people are pieces of shit, but one is, running to be is actually the governor of Connecticut, or running to be. One is a scientist who's trying to do good things, but is beholden to this shitbag. You know, like, who is genuinely a good scientist. The MRA dude, it just wants clout. Like, he wants clout at whatever cost. But the joke is that he's a little cuck too, isn't he? He's sitting there, like, sending his girlfriend in. Like, that is the joke of just like, you know.
I get that. Like, I understand that. I just there's just a little bit of like, okay, so what?
Yeah. I mean, I felt that way during Don't Look Up. And honestly, Anita, like, you were one person I was thinking of during that sequence. Like, oh my God, I've seen this happen so many times. And it's like, the movie does it. It's like, yes, that is what would happen. Okay. Yes. And like, what are you adding
here's another thing, though, is that there is character development and progression in Don't Look Up, whereas in this movie, they're shitty from beginning to end. Like, the fact that they still won't turn on him at the end of the movie, and then at the very end, when, like, there's literally no chance that they're going to get anything else from him, then you're like, this is it. This is part of my problem. Thank you for helping me figure this out.
Yeah.
It is, but also that isn't interesting to me. Like, not having character development and relation development, which I, you know, like, whatever, every plot, character, all of it's important, but I can't get into plot unless I care about the characters, which is why I don't like Andor, and I'm one of the only fucking people who doesn't like that fucking show, right?
No. Let's not.
I'm
just going to take that door. I'm going to close it. That's another episode.
You could all live in my reality in which there is no Star Wars.
Oh God, can I please? I would love that reality.
I don't know.
I know, but this is that we're not even going down this pathway. But I think this is it for me. Is like, if I need some evolution here as opposed to 2 hours of just like, look how bad these people are.
There is conflict.
Yes, it's realistic, but it just doesn't do it for me.
There is conflict, and I do think, like, especially now, like, this movie happened. I think I saw it like a month after Musk took over Twitter or something, and like seeing all his little billionaire cronies like join together with him. It's like, yeah, buddy, we could do this. You got VC shitbag Calacanis out there being like, put me in, coach. I'll help lead this company. Just seeing this little like cabal of rich idiots come together to do absolutely nothing, to run a social network the way, making all the mistakes all these companies have made over the past decade. Like, to me, that was sad and very hilarious. So to see these people come together and kind of just be, shitbags to each other, and like probably will turn on each other like the minute they can. I don't know. I enjoyed laughing at them because I am tired of crying about like what is happening in reality. Like I'm spending the real life being like, fair. Oh, we're due. We are just kind of like, you got Musk over there. You've got the politicians like who are not really holding big tech to account, even though they pretend to. Like, it's all, the reality of the situation is so bleak. I think in reality, in the real world right now, it's like, it was very nice to go on vacation to a Greek island and be like, ha, you are dumb. And I can laugh at you being dumb. And also there is humanity to it. Like, there is character to it. I don't think they're all just like I don't think they're all like empty archetypes. I think there's something about them all that I find kind of interesting, but it really is power.
Okay, is it that, or is it just that these are good actors that bring a lot to
it can be both.
More hollow characters, right? Yeah, it can be both.
Like, there's a reason all of these actors are chosen. I think this is a spectacular cast. In particular, I just have to say, like, pretty much everything Batista does in this movie, I think is hilarious, because he is one of my favorite actors right now, just as a wrestler, like, going into this, and like everything he does, he kind of like adds something to it. Here, like, I think he's going on like with the idea that he knows what these shitbags are like, and he is trying to be a performative, hyper-masculine men's right advocate, but at the same time, like, he has no real power of his own, right? Like, he's doing all this for more Twitch followers, more little followers from his billionaire friend. He will send his girlfriend out to do favors for him, basically, but has no real power of his own. So as an exploration of power, I found that all kind of fascinating too. But yeah, this movie's not for everyone. I think I've come to that point because other people I've heard call this movie dumb, dumb, dumb. I had to turn off that podcast right there because I'm like, there is more going on here. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe you think it's stupid, but I wouldn't call it dumb. Maybe it's just like not my style of humor or something. But yeah, I think there is a lot.
There is something. So just looking at the three movies we're talking about this little season, that Triangle of Sadness does overtly, and Glass Onion and The Menu don't do, which is like actually engage with the real world politics of like race and sex in a way that I think Glass Onion, and we'll talk about The Menu next week, but flattened that in a way that isn't, that's I think studios saying like, we want to have for more diverse casts, but we're not actually going to like have authenticity in this type of storytelling. And so there were a lot of things, like we talked about Triangle of Sadness, like the sort of, the little striations within like one group of people who hold capital or power, and the little striations between like the service class and the differences there. Here, like this movie, I do feel like it makes me ask questions that the movie itself doesn't ask, which is, of course, like maybe this is all extra textual, but like, so Andy, Janelle Monáe's character, is this like very powerful, potentially like climbing the ladder tech.
I mean, she's at the top of the ladder. Like, she started this company.
Right.
Yeah.
And does she have a relationship with her sister who's a nurse? Does she? That's
something I wish the movie kind of explored that. Like, it does kind of hint at it. Like, once she moved on to the big city, she kind of disconnected. That is a very common thing. Yeah. And I also found that really believable too, especially if you're coming from, if you're coming from a poor background, right? Or a background where you are not near power, right? Or people with money. Like, you kind of have to excise that part of yourself to become this new thing. It brings to mind, I don't know if you both have seen the movie Babylon, which is also a thing of heated discussion right now. I think it's kind of fascinating and kind of wild, and also basically stars an immigrant character who has to divorce his identity as a Mexican immigrant to succeed in Hollywood business. Like, he has to pretend he's from Spain. And like, I find that all very pointed, but it's in the background. Yeah. Those are things mentioned, and I think you have to read into it. I definitely found that, like, that seemed believable. And also, Andy's sister, like, before she's pretending to be Andy, like she sounds like a Southern lady, like it is a sensibility, like Janelle Monáe's entire like character and voice and demeanor really shifts. And I'm based outside of Atlanta right now, so I hear people in the South, I see people, and like just the way her demeanor shift, I found to be like, oh man, it's sort of like somebody from down here really, really ended up in this movie or something. So, and
it's something
I found it real.
Like that is a real thing that Jordan Peele's Us, I think, is so beautifully tells that story of like what happens when you are trying to like wrestle power from the very few people who have it, and you're one of the outsiders. So this like there's this really interesting ensemble cast, and we have a difference from Knives Out where everyone is in the same family except for Ana de Armas, and so that positions her as this outsider and Benoit Blanc as the outsider. But then in this, like, I did want to know more about Dave Bautista's, like, how does he relate to these people? We get to see a little moment of him with his mom, Jackie Hoffman, which love her, put her in everything.
So good.
Or like Peg, played by Jessica Henwick, who is Kate Hudson's assistant. Is she also complicit in this thing? Is she just there? Like there were questions again of like, okay, we have like several people of color in this crew, and how does that play out? Like
the one in power was killed, and everybody else like is trying to like to move around that. Peg is interesting, and I think that actress, like I love her, Jessica Henwick, also great in Matrix Resurrections. She is great in everything.
She's great in Iron Fist.
And
she's great in it.
Yes, I've heard. I've seen some of her in Iron Fist. That is one thing I was like, I'm not going to put myself through this. I don't even need to. This show does not even need to exist. But her character in particular, I was like, she even says to herself, like, she's trying to save herself from Kate Hudson's stupidity. Like, did you really think this is where they make sweats? Like that sort of realization, and her trying to, she is trying to save herself and her position, her little position, by helping Kate Hudson's character. And I thought she's interesting too. Like I think Peg is interesting because she is fully aware, like, my boss is a racist idiot. And I exist to serve her. And what does that make me? I wish this movie like left some time for reflection.
And
from
what
Peg.
Can I get out of this? Like if I'm putting myself through this for 5-10 years, like a lot of people do in those kinds of roles, can I get ahead? Can I get something? And then of course, like, I think that the character that Leslie Odom Jr. is playing is really interesting too, because this is where the styling I just loved so much. Like there's something about his fashion and his look where I was like, he wears like a selvage lab coat, like this bespoke lab coat.
He knows what's up.
He knows what's up. Like he's probably so rich, and like at the same time, I do feel like he knows he's the smartest person in the room. Yeah, and
it's a smart person being beholden to a genuine idiot.
A genuine idiot. Like
that early conversation that they have, like, listen, we know a lot of these ideas are stupid, but look at this fax I got, child plus NFT. And apparently whatever that was, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. And maybe it's also because I'm a little brain broken too, because I'm on Twitter too much and I'm in the tech world. I'm like, yes, I was probably the only one cackling in the theater at that, but to me that was hilarious. But that character is interesting because he also has the presence of mind to be like, we can't do this. But I don't have the power to tell my billionaire, boss that this is a bad idea. Like it's conflict. And I wish like more of those characters, like, were dealing with that throughout the movie, but the movie also has to like progress the mystery and kind of keep us going there too. So a lot of that stuff feels like side stories, that we kind of have to gather as we watch everything. Yeah.
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsor, ChatGPT, who wrote this episode.
All hail the AI overlords.
Great.
As we say, Megan did nothing wrong. Megan is correct.
I thought you respected me. What is it? I thought you liked me. Whatever it is, I love it.
So good. All right, y'all. We'll be right back with some freakouts.
Hey FFR listeners, are you signed up to our Patreon yet? If you're not, you're missing out on special content made exclusively for our patrons. And if you're not a patron, that means that you're not helping me get paid. And if you're not helping me get paid, that means my good little dog Griffin isn't getting the good treats. Head on over to patreon.com/femfreak. That's FEMFREQ. Become a patron to get great content and also to make sure my dog Griffin gets the good treats. Oh, and you get the good treats as well, which in your case would be quality discussions about media.
What's your freak out? Now it's time to talk about what's been thrilling us, moving us, upsetting us, or infuriating us recently. Kat, what are you having feelings about?
I just started listening to the If Books Could Kill podcast, which
great title.
So good. It's from Michael Hobbs, who I know from Maintenance Phase and the You're Wrong About podcast. I've only listened to a little bit of You're Wrong About. I really love Maintenance Phase, which he co-hosts with Aubrey Gordon. Maintenance Phase, as I'll also want to shout out to anyone listening, is about fat phobia and diet culture and all of the ways that our society is constantly reinforcing fat phobia. But it's also like, it is a podcast that has changed my life because Aubrey and Michael will go into, let's get into BMI. Let's get into all of the methodology problems with BMI. Let's get into why BMI is a flawed indicator of health, and then from there, maybe you can start to unravel your other preconceptions of weight and health and body and how we treat each other and how it's affected, of course, by racism and sexism and classism and American exceptionalism and all these other ways. So Michael Hobbs takes this kind of look into research, this research into research and methodology. And in his new podcast, If Books Could Kill, he's kind of taking the pop psychology or pop economics books that are really popular at airports and getting into what's fucked up about them. And I think the first episode is Freakonomics. He goes into the tipping point. I also
destroy it. Yes.
No, yes. Oh, this is so exciting.
I also listened to his episode. There's only about 6 episodes out now. I listened to the one about the game and mystery and Neil Strauss and the whole negging thing. So just really going into in particular, the tipping point episode, getting into, okay, we know that these are some really racist generalizations that Malcolm Gladwell is coming to, and he's using this quote unquote science and numbers to tell this story. But let's actually look at what those numbers are that he's presenting and analyze why that's not a good sample size or whatever it is. So I appreciate it because it's he's doing the research that I'm not going to do of, if I've gotten the log line about what this book is, I need someone to actually unpack it for me. And so I really am appreciating it so much. And I know
I love that there's an episode on The Secret and also Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. That fucking old ass, was it from the 60s or?
Yeah.
No, it's newer than that. Anyways, whatever. That fucking dumbass book that was so popular.
And it's so interesting, obviously, and I don't know if every book that they cover is going to be a nonfiction book like these have been. I think there could be, I would be interested to hear them get into an Eat, Pray, Love, which I guess is also nonfiction, right? It's her memoir, but or something that's just a little more narrative, and also kind of get into all right, don't take this at face value. Let's actually read into it. So if you are a fan, what I also appreciate is that you don't have to have read the book to appreciate the episode about it. So that's my freak out.
Nice.
Anita.
Great.
What about you?
Well, me. Okay, I'll go. So have you watched the show Fleishman Is in Trouble?
Not yet.
So good.
It's on Hulu.
Tremendous.
It's so fucking good, y'all. I know you think I hate everything, but I really don't. I could not, I had to pace myself because I loved this show so much. So it's Jesse Eisenberg, Lizzie Kaplan, fucking love
her.
Lizzie Kaplan, Claire Danes, and Adam Brody. And it's I don't know, I think we appreciate it because of our age.
It is laser targeted at people becoming 40 very soon. So,
yes.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I feel like it's like a show that is for a particular audience and of me, and or of my generation or whatever. And like, it is about a couple going through a divorce, and like, it is on a larger level. It is about people getting older and their lives not being what they thought it would be, and that marriage and careers and life and everything is just becomes a little rote or becomes not like exciting, and kind of coming to terms with being fed a lie about the myth of like what it means to settle down and have a career and all this shit. As I say that, it sounds kind of dumb, but I think the show does it in a way that is really, really smart. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but throughout the show, I had this like kind of niggling feeling about gender stuff that was really bothering me, and it was intentional. Mm-hmm. Like it was done,
it is sort of
when
like
I
the
realized it was done
too. So yeah,
it's very subtle, right? Like I don't expect everyone to pick up on it or identify it, and I don't mean that in a pretentious way, but like it wasn't enough to deter me from watching the show, right? And the fact that it was intentional just made me think that these these writers were just know exactly what they're doing.
One writer. It's Taffy Brodesser
one writer did the whole thing,
adapting her own book, which is like I think that's it. That it is a singular talent, kind of knowing exactly the story they want to tell.
And to be able to adapt, having the skill to adapt a book, your book that like you is precious to you, into this format, it is phenomenal. It's a phenomenal show. It's like I haven't been this excited for television in a long, long time.
It's one of those things I call like a miracle show because, like, first of all, an author is rarely given the chance to do that adaptation. Right. Certainly, if you've never done a TV show before, I do see it. I see Michael Goldbach as another writer credited, but it's mainly Taffy. And it is tremendous. So yeah, I'd say everybody check it out. Shout out to Lizzie Kaplan for genuinely always being amazing, but also Claire Danes, crying Claire Danes. Like there is one whopper of an episode that you will just have to turn off your TV, and just go for a walk, after that episode. So there was so much going on the show.
And also, oh God, I just want to like have a spoiler-filled conveation about this too, because there's certain pacing things that they do that you're kind of surprised by, that you're like, oh, you you waited to this moment to do this thing that like we expected to come or whatever. It's very, very good. I highly recommend it.
Also, I think if you've seen anything with these people, it is the cast is so pointed, right? Because the millennial generation grew up watching Claire Danes, right, in My So-Called Life and Romeo and Juliet. We saw Lizzie Kaplan in Party Down. We saw Adam Brody in The O.C., Jesse Eisenberg in like all his early stuff. Now we're seeing them as 40-somethings. And I think that touches something in us. It's like, oh, they grew up with you.
Right.
You grew up with them. You're old now. You're 40. Yeah. And this is the halfway point.
And when you've seen Jordan Catalano turn into Morbius, you need the palate cleanser of seeing Angela Chase.
You will never be the same again. You'll never be the same again.
Anything
else. Shout out Josh Radnor, the lead of How I Met Your Mother, a show which a ton of people were watching. Then it ended. We were like, oh, we hate that. Yeah. We're never going to talk about it again. But he is great here too. Like everybody's so good.
I've got to see this. I've been waiting for no good reason, but you've just all reminded me.
Yeah, I think like it starts as being very male focused. I think that is on purpose. So to anybody who's like, this is about a dude just going through the dating apps and having a grand old time, I'd say power through that. Yeah, because it's more than
and the title is intentional.
Yes. Yep.
Cool. In the way it's phrased. So yeah. And I will say too that like it's not. Yeah. Anyways, there's a bunch. Just fucking watch it and then come back and let's like gush about it because it's so good. Devindra, do you have a freak out for us?
I do. I've been going through Sundance, virtual Sundance. So I've been watching a lot of the releases that's happening this week. And one I really want to shout out is Polite Society, the new movie by Nida Manzoor. And holy hell, this movie is just fantastic.
Is this the stunt woman?
This is a stunt woman.
I can't wait to see this.
Nida Manzoor is the creator of We Are Lady Parts, a wonderful show on Peacock.
Yes.
Yeah, about a group of like Muslim teens and 20-somethings doing a punk rock band type of thing. I love that show. This is a movie about a teenager who wants to grow up to be a stunt woman. She's a young British Pakistani Muslim, girl. She wants to be a stunt woman. Not really many people like looking like her in that, in that field. Her sister wants to be an artist, but has just like dropped out of art school and is kind of like just like drifting through life. And it is about their relationship. It's about, her sister finds herself somehow chosen to be the chosen bride for a very like rich family, to be married off basically, in a very modern way. And it's about the stunt woman character, Ria Khan, trying to stop this marriage and save her sister and yada, yada, yada. It is filled with fantastic martial arts. I think it's really well written too. Like it is sort of Scott Pilgrim in the way that some fights will just end up being, some arguments will end up being a martial arts fight. And the movie doesn't really like need to explain it. It's like, that just happened. Move on. It's that combination was also great writing about sisterhood. It definitely explores like the place of like being a Muslim teenager in Britain today. The gender roles like placed upon you, like what you should be doing with your life. It explores like all these things, but it's also a ton of fun and has a ton of heart. And it's really well made. I can also tell that Nida Manzoor has like the same cinematic sensibilities as I do when it comes to like action movies, because I love action movies. There are direct riffs on Crouching Tiger and The Matrix in this movie in some sequences. Mostly, though, it's a lot of fun. For me, this is sort of like the Everything Everywhere All at Once for this year, except it's about a British Pakistani teenager. I love it.
Nice. That sounds amazing. I already put it on my Letterboxd wish list.
Oh, I'm going to see if I can still get a ticket.
It's going to be in theaters at the end of April, I believe.
Okay.
So you'll be able to see it soon.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Well, that is our show for today. We glass onioned. Thank you, Devindra, for joining us and for going in the ring with Anita on a movie that she has been dreading recording.
Well, certainly I was kind of doing this out loud during the Tar review as well. I was like, listen.
Look,
there's a lot going on here.
There was someone else I asked to be on this episode, and they're like, "But you didn't like it," and I did. I was like, "I know that makes a better episode."
It does make it better.
And so I like really appreciate that you like. I'm excited that you liked it and you're willing to like dive into it with me.
Those
because
are the best
I
conversations.
think,
that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So absolutely.
So where can people listen to your podcast, read your writing, etc., etc.?
Sure. You can find me on the Engadget podcast, Engadget.com. I also, review tech and write news and stuff there. And I also podcast about movies and TV at the /Filmcast. Sorry, the Filmcast. We are no longer the /Filmcast. At thefilmcast.com. I'm on Twitter at Devindra. I'm on Mastodon at Devindra@mastodon.social. It's going to take me a while to remember that, but yeah.
Nice. I'm Anita Sarkeesian, and you can find me at Anita Sarkeesian on all the things.
I'm Kat Spada, and I'm on Twitter at @Kat_EX_Machina. And please be sure to follow Feminist Frequency at FemFreak on the stuff.
If you are a Patreon subscriber, be sure to stick around for the bonus episode with our special guest. I can't wait to find more things that we can argue about.
Oh boy.
If you like the show, please help other people find it by subscribing, rating, and commenting on iTunes or your favorite podcatcher. Thank you
for listening.
Bye.